May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be aligned with your love, O God, our courage, our strength, and our freedom. Amen. I love this life at All Saints, living into my Jewish, Muslim, Baptist, Episcopalian, Buddhist, Hindu, atheist identity. I love it. My moment of epiphany about my hybridization or hyphenization took place when our children were small and our pediatrician came to me and said, "I'm Jewish, but I think I want to be baptized." And so we entered into a one-on-one tutorial for several months. And after he had read all the books and engaged me in very intelligent, profound ways, he said, "I've decided I do want to be baptized. My wife is an Episcopalian. We've baptized our 3 children as Episcopalians. I want to be baptized, but I want to know if you will baptize me under this condition, as long as I don't have to stop being Jewish." I said, "You got it." And all of a sudden, he had ministered to me because I realized that I could continue my Baptist identity along with being an Episcopalian. And that in God's love, you don't have to choose one to dominate the other. So with God's spotlight, 3 other things. I'm about to get into Desmond Tutu. Before I go there, all of this got cemented for me, got deeply etched for me, when after 9/11 we all gathered down at the mosque at USC, and we heard an imam say, "To be religious in the 21st century is to be interreligious." And Dr. Maher Hathout once was here and spoke, and he said to me, "Ed, I have interfaith in you." And I've already started collecting names of rabbis in Birmingham, Alabama, and an imam in Atlanta to get into the interreligious network there. So with God's spotlight making me aware of how interfaith we are at All Saints, I remembered how that wonderful book of Desmond Tutu's speeches, and the name of the book uses the title of one of his speeches, "God is Not a Christian." He says it's really important for us to understand that God created us all, not just Christians, in God's image, investing every human being with infinite worth, and that it was then in our creation that God entered into a covenant relationship with every human being. He says Christianity does not have an exclusive proprietary claim on God, as if God were a Christian. There is ample biblical evidence to support the case that God is not a Christian. John's gospel, right at the beginning, makes a cosmic and startling claim for Jesus, Bishop Tutu says, as the light who enlightens everyone, not just Christians. Every one of God's human creatures has the capacity to know something about God from the evidence that God leaves in his handiwork, in God's handiwork. Paul, when he speaks before the Areopagus, talks about how God has created all human beings from one stock and given everyone the urge, the hunger for divine things, so that all will seek after God, and that all of us live and move and have our being in God. Now, let's just pause there. Paul is saying in Acts of the Apostles that everybody lives and moves and has their being in God. That's not a God who's out there and distant and above. That is a God in whom we swim. That is a God in whom we breathe. Remember Richard Rohr saying last Sunday that God is the breath, Yahweh. between us all. That's the new narrative we're trying to articulate with our colleagues throughout the world. In any case, Bishop Tutu reminds us that Buddhists are constrained to greet one another and us with a profound bow as they say, Namaste. The God in me greets the God in you. So, he goes on to say, if you're a believer, you must oppose injustice everywhere, whether you're a Muslim, a Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, because you see, this is one of the common factors in all these faiths. Not one of them has a low doctrine of human beings. God is dwelling in absolutely everyone. So we are called to be advocates for justice and peace for everyone. So God is not a Christian. Now today's gospel lesson is called one of the resurrection appearances. And it's all about forgiveness and seeing God in everyone and caring for the God in everyone. Our collect for today, the third Sunday of Easter, says, open the eyes of our faith. And the first lesson says, wake me up to the newness that God is doing in the world. I loved the way she read that first lesson. The fact of the matter is that is our mission. That is our vision. We are moving toward that, and God is working in every person to wake us up to that vision. Loving God means loving and caring for others. Jesus appears to Peter, and Peter denied him 3 times after Jesus washed his feet. The night that Jesus was executed, tortured, Peter denies Jesus 3 times. And as a signal to you and me that the new life that Jesus brought back for the grave is about forgiveness, Jesus appears to Peter, the one who abandoned and betrayed him 3 times, and forgives Peter and calls Peter to love him 3 times. Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord, I love you. Well, if you love me, feed my sheep. Peter, do you really, really love me? Yes, and you hurt my feelings asking me so many times. Take care of my lambs. Do you really love me, Peter? God, Jesus, how many times are you going to ask me this? Feed my sheep. Jesus is saying, I, the God in me, is in everyone else. And when you take care, if you really, really love me, you're going to interreligiously take care of everybody else. See me in everyone. One last story. Last night, we had the last of the 5 listening sessions we've been having before I leave. And it was a wonderful event sponsored by the Latino Hispanic ministry here. And the tacos and the empanadas were to die for. They were just magnificent. And after we had 90 minutes of a listening session, a parishioner here, whose name also is Peter Sepsis, whom I married to his wife, who's now in Malawi on a wonderful mission. He said, I just need to tell you something. He said, in the last few years, I have discovered the holiness within me. Prior to that, I thought that holiness was external to my being, was up there and out there. Then he pointed to his heart. He said, but I have discovered that holiness is right here inside me. And, he added, now Peter is a psychotherapist. He knows about things like this. He said, now I know that I have the responsibility to shepherd, he used that word, on the eve of our talking about feed my sheep. I now know that I have the responsibility to shepherd that holiness within me and within everyone else. My friends, in these few days when God's spotlight is shining on our calendar of our interfaith ministry, let us remember that in order to be risen to new life, you and I have a responsibility to shepherd the holiness that is within us and in every human being we meet. Today, with Rabbi Brous. Tomorrow night, in memory of Rabbi Bierman. Throughout the week, including my preaching to the Muslims next Sunday. However God's spotlight shows up in your calendar, let God's spotlight wake you up and show you how to shepherd the holiness within you and with every human being you meet, particularly of those with another faith or of no faith. Amen.